All right. So we ended at the types of errors that you may come up when trying to conduct a survey. Okay. Um, and then we said that to avoid those errors are sampling error and non-sampling errors. And then we said that the sampling errors occur because of the fact that you are not using the whole population, but you are picking a portion of the population to do your survey, right? And then the non-sampling error has nothing to do with you doing the sampling, all right? But all the other things that happen from setting up your questionnaires, defining your which people you can take the data from, the population, even all these stuff, other things you do that are side sampling that may cause an error. That's errors that will be happening or you would see is categorized as what non-sampling error, non-sampling errors. Okay, all right. So that is that. Let's look at sampling issues and then we will move on. So there are a number of ways researchers can select samples. Okay, so now we are delving into surveys. So you want to do a survey, you would have to take a sample, isn't it? You have to take a sample because we know that if you are to take the whole population in your survey, there are a lot of things that you face, a lot of challenges that you face, because even the cost of making a questionnaire is not something easy to bear. So assuming there's a population of 1 million people and then you are taking all of them in as your survey unit, picking all of them, imagine doing 1 million questionnaires will cost you a lot. You won't be able to do that. All right, so you would have to take a sample, maybe 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 to cut costs, isn't it? And then you have to hire people to even take charge, go and collect the data for you. You have to pay them. Expenses there is very expensive. You can't bear that, so you would have to take a sample. Okay, and then you would also look at it in a way that, look, assuming the population has places that you have to travel and go for samples, okay, go and take your data from them. You can imagine the stress. Your vehicles that you have to purchase vehicles, you have to bicycles to move people to the places and stuff. Resources are not enough to cover all the whole population. Okay, so it is better you do a sample survey. Okay, do a sample survey means you take a portion based on what you can do, your resources, available resources, the money in your hand, the human resources in your hand. Based on that, you do your sample survey. So there are a number of ways you can select a sample. Okay, so one of the most useful but also the most difficult is random sampling. Okay, so in statistics the term random has a much more specific meaning than the common usage of the term. Remember, when say you select from random, we think about haphazard way. You basa random yidibab, that is in the local language. See, then times when they say random, you think about it in a way that, is this person trying to say basa, right? But in here, random is not like that. It's not haphazard. All right. So in statistical jargons, random means that every member of a population has a chance of being selected into a sample. Okay, into a sample. So the major benefit of random sampling is that any difference between the sample and then the population from which the sample was selected will not be systematic. That means anything that will happen will not be somebody that will cause it. Okay, it will happen by chance. Notice that in the depression study example, the sample differed from population in importance. Okay, that is systematic, non-random ways. Okay, for example, the researcher most likely systematically selected adolescents who were more likely to be depressed than the average. So it happens that when you take a sample and the sample is random, you picked it using a random technique. That means anybody in that population has a chance of being selected. In that case, you don't affect the outcome. You don't take part, contribute to what comes up. Okay, but when you do it the non-random way, like the example, you are trying to look at average adolescents, their depression, and then you conveniently selected people who get depressed most at times. Okay, in a way you are going to end up getting something that will show that the average, a lot of people get depressed. Probably your sample you picked wasn't random. That is why you are getting that result. Okay, all right, so take note. So service providers, although randomly selected samples may differ from larger population in important ways, specifically if the sample is small. These differences are due to chances rather than the systematic bias in the selection process. So when you do random sampling, you may have differences with the population parameter. Okay, but assuming you are trying to estimate mean of the population, you pick a sample, your mean might not be the same as the population. There's some, but that doesn't mean you caused, or there is an external force in the system. Okay, it happened by chance. Okay, the fact that you are picking a sample, you picked it random, there should be an error, and you are not the one who is causing that. Okay, so there's another term, representative sampling. Okay, there's another term. We are trying to explain some terminologies. So it's a second way of selecting cases for a study. So with this method, the researcher purposely selects cases so that they will match the larger population on specific characteristics. So for example, if you want to conduct a study examining the average annual income of adults in public sector of Ghana, by definition, my population is adults in public sector. Okay, so these population include a number of subgroups, different departments and staffs in regions, junior and senior staff, male and female, total adult, parent and single adult. So these different groups may be expected to have different incomes. So to get an accurate picture of the income of the adult population in the sector, we may want to select a sample that represents the population well. Therefore, we will try to match the percentages of each group in my sample, so that we have in my population, for example, if 15% of the adult population is in public sector. So this whole thing is trying to tell you that now your sample you pick must be representative of the population. Okay, that means your sample should be a clear-cut picture of your population. So if your population consists of different kind of people, assuming you go to, let's say, a company and you want to find average salary, and then the only people you picked is the executives. Remember, those people are taking millions of cedis. So when you find the mean, and it's 2 million. Meanwhile, there's somebody sitting at the gate taking 500. Somebody sitting at the gate taking 200. And you are saying that the mean salary in the company is 200. That is not right. Okay, so you have to take the sample to look like the population. So you pick some executives, you pick some gate man, you pick some middlemen, you pick some low class men. All of them, you pick them in the company, take their salaries and do the survey. In that way, you have a clear picture. Okay, that's representative sampling. Okay, so your sample should be representative. It should represent your population. Okay, it should be representative enough. All right. So these are all about, and then another way is convenient sampling. So you sample based on what you want, convenient. So those are available. Okay, you want to take a survey of your students, all right, and then you want, like for example, this class we are conducting, and I want to ask some people some questions. For conveniences, I will only look at those who have come online and then give them my survey to answer for me, because some people are not reliable. You send them the question, they won't even answer. So those who are available online, I'll give it to them. That's convenience sampling. Okay, so in convenience sampling, the researcher generally selects participants on the basis of proximity. That means the closeness. Okay, and because those people are close to his environment, he's taking them into a sample. He doesn't have to travel to places and then go and then take the sample or take the data from them. Ease of access, you can easily access them. And then willingness to participate, they are willing to participate. In that case, I pick those guys as my sample. And then, so for example, if you want to do a study on the achievement levels of 8th grade student, you may select a sample of 200 students, from the nearest junior high school. Of course, that is where you can easily go. That is where the people can respond. Even if you go there, you'll be interested in knowing, even allowing those who are willing to take part in the survey to take part. You won't force anybody to take part in the survey. All right, so that is that. Right, so data collection method. So remember that when you are doing a survey, you would have to define your sample, your population, pick a sample. When you are done picking the sample, you have to go ahead and take the data. Okay, take the data. So data collection, all right. So it's a field of science that's concerned with fact. So here we are talking about, now that you have your samples already, go ahead and take the data. Go ahead and take their names. Go ahead and take their salaries. Go ahead and take their gender, their sex. All right, go ahead and take all the variables you want to take. Go ahead and take that. Okay, so the information collected from the sample of members or outcome provides the factual information used in studying the population or process. So all that you are setting up your survey for is to get that data and then try to process that data. Okay, all right. So now there are sources of data. Okay, sources of data. So sources of data, you may have a primary source and then a secondary source. Okay, so primary sources, just think about it like, so if I'm the one trying to collect the data, it's primary. You are the one setting up the questionnaires, going to the people collect data. So the data has not been collected before. You are the owner of the data. You are now searching for that information. Then that source is a primary source of data. Okay, where the data is already there, you go and pick it. It's a secondary source of data. Right, so the data is already there, somebody collected it, you went there to pick it, and then that becomes a secondary source of data. Okay, all right. So there are some methods. If you want to collect the data, you have to go through data collection methods. Okay, there are some methods you have to go through. Data collection methods. So the data collection methods you need, all right. So why do you collect the data? Okay, so it is from here. It says that you want to collect data because of you want to analyze it, and use it for planning, use it for forecasting, that is prediction and projection, for your decision making, right? So you collect data and you analyze data, and then the results you get, you use to plan, to forecast, right? To make decisions, to formulate hypotheses or policies, administrative purpose, alright, and confirming scientific theories. That is why you take the data and process it. Alright? Okay. So the basic method by which data for a research study may be collected are by abstraction from published or unpublished data from government or private source, conducting a survey, and then direct observation. Alright, so these are the three basic ways you can methods that you can use to get your data. So the first part, which is saying that you abstraction of the data from published and unpublished is a typical secondary source. So it's not you picked it from somewhere. So by you conducting the survey to get the data yourself is a primary source. You doing a direct variation to is a primary source of data. Okay, so these are the ways you can use to get your methods you can use to get your data. Okay, so conducting a survey, you conduct a survey. So in conducting a survey, it means you set up everything yourself. Okay, and then most especially you use a questionnaire to get your data. All right, so there are essential three modes through which survey data can be collected. Now you send your questionnaires. Are you going to sit there and read your questionnaires for the person to answer personal interview? So with this one, when you send a questionnaire to the respondent, you are sitting there, you ask, Mr. Man, what's your name? Yes, and then the person answers, how old are you? He gives you the answer. That's personal interview. Self-administered questionnaire, that means you just take the questionnaire to the person and then go. The person fills it and then give it to you. Okay, and then this one is telephone interview. So you write down your questions in front of you, pick your phone, call the person, and then ask. The person gives you the feedbacks. Okay, all right. So these are stuff about conducting a survey. Okay, so go through that and then we'll be fine. Okay, these are all stories, direct observation you can read. Alright, so we'll meet again and talk about questionnaire.